In this video, I will show you how to use click element variable with Google Tag Manager. Watch closely, because many people are doing mistakes here. Hey, my name is Julius and welcome to Analytics Mania YouTube channel. If you're new here, I teach people how to work with Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics. So if you want to stay up to date with these tools, consider subscribing. Click element variable can be confusing. When you enable the preview mode, click a certain element on a website and then check its value, you might see something like this. But here's the problem. This is not a real value of this variable, and it will not work in many cases as you would expect. So in this video, I will show you what the click element actually is and how to properly use it. Let's take a look. To get started with the click element variable, first we have to go to Google Tag Manager, Variables, and then Configure. If you haven't yet, then you should enable all the click variables right here. Obviously, in this video, we will be focusing only on this one, but it is just a good practice in general to enable all of the click variables. Then, to start seeing click events in the preview mode of Google Tag Manager, we have to go to Triggers and create at least one Google Tag Manager click trigger. So click New, Trigger Configuration, and based on your situation, maybe you want to track a link, then just links will be fine. But in this case, let's say that we want to track clicks on any elements on our website. So choose all element clicks, and then let's name this trigger. Then click Save. And now we have enabled click tracking in our Google Tag Manager container. Click on the preview, and then we will take a look what kind of data does the click element variable return. So click Connect, and eventually you should see that the preview mode has connected right here. So if I click on any element, for example, I click on title, maybe I click on this link right here, you will start seeing some click events in the preview mode of Google Tag Manager. You can click on the first one and then go to Variables. Here you will see what kind of click information do we have. We have click classes, click element, and so on. In the past, click element variable in Google Tag Manager preview mode was displayed as an object, and its output was just a link of the URL. For example, if you click the actual URL. But now click element looks much more confusing when it comes to the preview and debug mode. Instead of object, now it is displayed as a string, and the output looks like this. And unfortunately, in this situation, many Google Tag Manager beginners make a mistake, which is quite an honest mistake because, as I've said, this looks a bit confusing. So let's say that in our case, we want to track this click, but we don't have any click classes or click ID. Even though we have right here, let's imagine that we don't. So what usually beginners do in Google Tag Manager, they try to use the click element variable in their trigger, and they try to do something like click element contains and this part. Unfortunately, this will not work. So if I go, let's say, to triggers and then do like this, so I choose some clicks and then I enter something like this will not work because click element is not a regular string. And in this context, string basically means just a regular text. Click element contains a much more complex data structure that is just not displayed right here. So what kind of data does the click element contain? Well, first of all, we have to take a look at what does the click element actually mean. So let's say that I want to track clicks on this button. So when I click on it, then the click element variable will contain something like this. So the click element actually contains a lot of stuff like IDs, names, text content, and so on. In fact, we can go even deeper and we can investigate and inspect what is in the actual click element. So first of all, if I click on this click event in the preview mode and then go to the data layer, you will see that we have a key called element. And this element is the child of GTM. So if we wanted to access this parameter in the data layer, the value would be gtm.element. But even though the element key in the data layer contains a lot of information, almost none of that information is properly displayed in the preview mode because there's actually a lot of stuff. So if you want to check what is actually available in the element key right here, or in other words, gtm.element, you should go to the website, then go to console, you can clear the console, and then you enter data layer like this with the uppercase L. Now you should expand it and find the latest gtm.click event because this event is very closely related to this most recent event. Well, actually not the recent, but let's use this one. So I will click this one, and this means not the newest, but the previous one. So it should be this one. I click this dark triangle to expand it, and then I expand the GTM element. GTM.element is kind of the same, or actually very close to what is in this part, which is GTM element. Now, if I expand this one, you will see a lot of parameters. Some of them are empty, some of them contain some information. Here we see a lot of parameters that are null and they're quite technical, so you don't need to care about them. And we can also access things like children of this element. And children basically are the elements that are in the lower position of the document object model of this website. I know that this might sound confusing, but just bear with me. Then we also have things like ID, inner text, and all the other stuff. And a bit later in this video, I will show you an example of how can you actually use some of these parameters in practice. So my main point right here is that click element is not just a regular text as it is displayed right here. It is a complex structure that contains a lot of different parameters. So if you use something like click element contains and this, it will not work. The only operator, and I mean this dropdown right here, the only two options that work with the click element variable are matches CSS selector and does not match CSS selector. So if you want to use the click element variable in your triggers, you have to be familiar with at least the fundamentals of CSS selectors. Below this video, I will share several learning resources for you to get started with the CSS selectors. And if CSS selectors still look way too much confusing for you, then you can take a look at my intermediate advanced Google Tag Magic course, where I have a dedicated module just to this topic, where I show you some tips on how to learn the topic faster, how to apply it in Google Tag Manager, and so on. I'll post a link to this course in the description of the video as well. Now let's go back to that matches CSS selector option. Let's say that on this page, I want to track clicks of this add to cart button. Now, if I inspect this by doing the right click and then inspect, I will see that this element actually consists of two elements. Well, first of all, this element is not a link, therefore the just links trigger will not work. This element is coded as a button, and you can see it right here. This button actually consists of two elements. In fact, if I expand this button right here, I will see that there is a span element, which is text of the button, because if I hover right here, you will see that it is highlighted right here. So we have a text and we have the background of the button. So one of the ways how we can track clicks on this button is by using CSS selectors. CSS selectors is a syntax that allows you to select certain elements on a page based on their attributes, their classes, IDs, maybe some other parameters. So in this case, what we could do is that we can track clicks on all the elements that are this background or this button element, or any element that is a child or even in the lower level of this element. Because if I click right here, I collapse the structure of the elements, and then if I click right here, I expand it, and you can see that this element is kind of on the lower level compared to this button right here. So now I will go to Google Tag Manager and update this trigger. So I keep using the click element variable. Then from contains, I go to matches CSS selector, because matches CSS selector accepts the click element variable. And then in this part, I would have to write a valid CSS selector. Now in this video, I will not dive deeper into the explanation of the syntax. So if you want to learn more, you can check the resources below the video. Now I will go to the website, and then I will copy the ID of the button element right here. Then in this field, I paste that ID, but in this case, Google Tag Manager will not know what it is. Is it a class? Is this the ID? Therefore, in CSS, we have to enter this hashtag before the ID, because if we add this symbol in front of some text, then Google Tag Manager will know that we are looking for an element of which ID is exactly this one. So with this CSS selector, we will be targeting all clicks that happen on the button element right here. But what happens if a visitor clicks on this element, which is the text? Well, then the visitor will actually click not the button element, but this element. And this element's ID is different. Now, on other websites, there might be even more elements below the button. Maybe some elements are children of the span element and so on. So in order to build a robust trigger, we have to configure our CSS selector like this. We will be looking for clicks on elements of which ID is this one, or we will be looking for clicks on any element below it. And that can be done with the following syntax. We copy this part, the entire CSS selector, then we enter comma, paste that CSS selector once again. This is very important. Then you enter space and asterisk. So this means that we will be looking for clicks on elements that have this ID or on any element that is below this ID. So in our case, the element that is below the button is this span element. And now I should rename this trigger to, let's say, click and add to cart button or something like that. In this video, I won't be testing this example, but if you want to learn more about this kind of technique, I have another video, which is a tutorial on 3 click tracking techniques with Google Tag Manager. So I will post a link to that video below as well. And if you want to know, this tracking technique where we used the match CSS selector and this kind of selector, it is called wildcard CSS selector. So if you want to learn more about it, I will post a link below the video. So let's quickly recap what we have learned in this video so far, and then I will share my final tip in this video. So we have learned that click element in reality is not a string, and it is a complex object that contains a lot of information. That's why you cannot use things like contains, equals, ends with, or whatever with the click element variable. The only 2 operators that you can use are does not match CSS selector and matches CSS selector. And then I shared an example of the wildcard CSS selector that we use to track the clicks on the button element, or in other words, on the background. And then this part is responsible for tracking clicks on all the elements that are children or grandchildren or wherever level in that button. Or if we look from this perspective, those elements are on the lower level of the main element. And now the time has come for the final tip that I wanted to share. Here I have some demo page where I can add this product to a cart. Now, if I do the right click and inspect this element, I will see that this element is a link. This is its class, and the parent element of this link contains the product ID. So first of all, let's take a look what kind of information can we get with the built-in Google Tag Manager's functionality. So let's go to Google Tag Manager, then triggers, new, trigger configuration, just links, and then again, let's enter all link clicks because this is our first just links trigger in the container. Click save, and now I will refresh the preview mode. Once the preview mode is refreshed or enabled, I will now click this link. Then in the preview mode, I will see the link click event right here. If I go to variables, I will see that add to cart btn class is available right here. So this could be used in my click trigger condition because I could track all the clicks of elements where click classes contains this value. However, I don't have anything else related to the product ID. But if I inspect this element, I will see that the parent element, which is one level up, this contains the ID. And after looking in the backend of this website and comparing the IDs, I am 100% positive that this is not just some element ID, but this is the ID of the product. So I could use this in my tags. But how can I access it? And that's where the click element variable becomes, once again, quite useful. Let me show you. First of all, I will clear the preview mode right here. I will then refresh the page once again, and then I will click the link once again. I do it, and then I go to the console. I clear the console and then enter data layer with the uppercase L. Hit enter. Here you will see 6 data layer pushes that have occurred on this website, and one of them is link click. This link click is that click that happened when I clicked this link. So I will expand it. Then I will expand the GTM element, and then there is one parameter of this element that is quite interesting to me. If I scroll down, I should be looking for a parameter which is called parent element. This key will return the element that is the parent of this link. So this is the link, and the parent element is this one. So I want to access parent element's ID parameter. So let's keep digging. Let's go back to the console. I have parent element, I expand it, and then in this element, I need to find the ID key. This ID key right here, it returns the parent element's ID attributes value, which is this one. This is the exact same thing as it is right here. So if we look at the entire path, it will look like this. We have gtm.element, and then we go one level deeper. So we have to enter dot parent element dot ID. And where can we enter this information? Well, we can use the data layer variable. So let's go to Google Tag Manager, variables, new, variable configuration, data layer variable, and then we enter the entire path. which is gtm.element.parentElement.id. And let's save this variable. Now let's refresh the preview mode and check whether this variable is configured correctly. So I will close the console and then I will click this link once again. I did it. Now if I go to the preview mode of Google Tag Manager and do the link click right here, I will see that my data layer variables value is this, which is the ID of the parent element. All right. I hope that now you have a much better understanding of how to work with the click element variable. As you can see, this kind of topic belongs in the intermediate advanced Google Tag Manager zone. If you found this video useful, hit the thumbs up button below the video because it helps me continue working on this channel. Also, if you want to learn more about Google Tag Manager, consider subscribing to this channel. My name is Julius, this is Analytics Mania, and I'll see you in the next video.